Ladies and gentlemen, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for this really fun and inspiring lunchtime panel. We've got some incredible women here to share their stories, and I'm so excited to get to know them all just a little bit better. We've only got an hour, so it won't be in depth, but just enough to inspire and hopefully convince some of you who are watching that this industry is the place to be. There is so much growth, so much opportunity, and if you're willing to work hard and show a lot of resilience, I think resilience is key for a lot of women, particularly in male-dominated fields, then the sky is your limit, essentially, in this. My name is Erin Molan, and it's a real pleasure to be here with you. I have a real passion for women, essentially, supporting women and looking at women, as I said, who are in male-dominated fields and showing the way, showing leadership. And I welcome there are many more women than men, but we thank the men for coming along as well, because I know in my own particular life and my career, it's been support of men almost as much as anything else that has really helped me to thrive and to do what I've been able to do over 20 years. So I know firsthand what it's like to be in the minority, what it's like to fight against things that are utterly ridiculous. I was the first woman to host 3 or 4 different shows and programs in rugby league back, well, I say in the dinosaur days, but it really wasn't, because it was only really 10, 15 years ago. And still today, there's still some of the pushback that, you know, I thought would be considered archaic now, but it's not. But we've come an incredibly long way. We now have women on television doing things that I never saw when I was younger, just like we've got these incredible women in roles that maybe weren't always filled by women. So let me introduce some of the most incredible women that we've got with you today. And a big thank you as well to the Motor Trades Association of Australia for putting on this event. They do a wonderful job. They're always happy to answer any questions. Anyone who's watching at the moment and is interested in a career or in this field, make sure you hit them up. They're a great source of information, and the advocacy work they do is phenomenal as well. So we've got Ruggeri, who is from Victoria. Now, she comes from a small business background, with the body repair sector being a major part of her life for nearly 2 decades. Now, she's found personally and more broadly the industry not an easy one to navigate. However, she continues to rise to the challenge. Her business is based in Geelong and Victoria. She's won several awards for a state-of-the-art facility, and I can't wait to talk to her a little bit more about that in just a moment. Andrea McCarthy. She won the Small Business Employer of the Year Queensland Training in 2023, which is an amazing award. I know the competition was very steep for that, so congratulations to her. She's had over 25 years' experience in the collision repair industry, and she assists her team and clients through every stage of their motor vehicle repair with a better understanding of quality repairs. And she's always been a voice. She's very passionate about advocating for people as well. So looking forward to chatting with you, Andrea. Now, Sarah Karavasilias, she, after completing her HSC, jumped straight into a career in law, and not just law, not contract law, but criminal law, which is fascinating. So very different fields, mind you, could be some crossover depending on the nature of the crime, alleged crime, of course. But I'm so excited. She then decided to go into her family business, and I'd love to know what it was that her aha moment, I guess, if you could call it that, in her wanting to join the family business, and what skills she was able to bring from a very different career prior into what she's doing right now. We've got Alison Turnbull, who's been in the automotive repair business for over 30 years, and she would have seen, and she definitely has seen, a lot of changes. Technology material used in vehicles. I'm sure attitudes towards women potentially in this field, she would have seen change over many, many years as well. So I'm so excited to pick her brain on that. She's also very passionate about the future of the workforce and puts a lot of work into making sure that it's heading in the right direction. So very excited. And Melissa Rowe, who is the Managing Director of Esperance Smash Repairs in Western Australia. She's a mother of 2 adult children. She's mastered the art of juggling many hats. We don't have long enough for you to try and explain to us all how you do that, because I'd love to know. But she's very passionate about the rural community, a small business, and she enjoys running a busy automotive panel and refinish business with her husband, David. And she recently won the Automotive Woman of the Year award for Western Australia and received the Vera, which is a volunteer award, in 2022. So congratulations. It is such an incredible field. It sounds like a horse race. I don't mean to be offensive at all, but of women here that we've got at your disposal. So make sure you enjoy, listen, take notes. And I'm sure if you've got questions after, you can contact these amazing women, slide into my DMs as long as they're above board. We don't want anything inappropriate. Thank you so much. Or hit up the Motor Trades Association of Australia as well, and they will be very happy to answer your questions. Melissa, I'll start with you. I would love to know what your moment was that kick-started your collision journey.
Thank you. Welcome. Hello, everyone. For me, my background was in property real estate. So my husband bought a Windscreen O'Brien business when we first moved to town 28 years ago, and he kind of plodded away really nicely doing that business, and I had my own career. One night, though, we had a hailstorm in Esperance, which was probably one of the biggest in WA's history, and we just were inundated with phone calls at home at 5 o'clock at night. So the next morning I thought, look, I better go in and help out. So had a brand new baby and a toddler and popped in just to help out for the day. That particular day, we probably repaired about 16 windscreens and booked in hundreds upon hundreds. I just remember I couldn't even park in my own car parking bay. There were so many cars parked out the front. People were panicking. It was yeah, really interesting. So I think that day turned everything for me. I was going to move back into our little business. We had the opportunity to buy our smash repair business. So I went on a bit of a journey to learn what to do and what's involved in the panel industry. So yeah, I found it a bit easier to actually manage cars than people in real estate sometimes. So
I don't think anyone needs that to be explained, to be honest. That sounds like my idea of heaven. Not having, I mean, most people are amazing, but there are some punishers in our different fields. Sarah, you became a lawyer first and you were in the field of criminal law, as I said. What made you then decide to move into the family business, and what skills from your previous career are now applicable to what you're doing?
Yep. So very similar to Melissa. I've been with my husband now for 12 years and he's been in the industry for about 20 years. So I've always sort of been in the background listening to what's been going on and going through ideas with him back and forth, getting him to brainstorm. And sometimes he'd make me read a contract for him because he's not really into reading contracts, and I was more than happy to do that. And one day, just coming out of COVID, luckily we survived COVID, coming out of it, he gave me a lease to read because he wanted to expand. It was, if we were going to go into this lease, it was going to add another 3,000 square meters. So it was quite a big deal. It was a bit of a risk coming out of COVID. Anyway, we signed the lease, all good and well. This was the adjacent building to what we had prior to that. And after he opened the roller door, within 5 minutes, this 3,000 square meter site was full of cars.
Wow.
Much like what Melissa was saying, it's very sort of a lot of things happening, a lot of moving parts. And I thought as soon as this site, 3,000 square meters was filled, I thought, nah, I got to get a bit of this. I got to get involved. I want to be involved. And there really has not been a dull moment since then. So my job is not so much hands-on, but I do sort of the back end of work, doing the paperwork, dealing and negotiating with insurance. We have 70 staff members, so trying to make sure everyone's happy. Sometimes it feels like a bit of a high school, but it's okay. And dealing with our suppliers, our paint companies, parts, developing our customer experience, which is always so satisfying when I get a Google review. I'm like cheering how hard it is to get that conversion. But and also trying to establish and maintain our training programs. So it's always interesting. I never realized this, but there is two sides of this industry. Getting your hands dirty and doing the painting or doing a trade, but then there's also another side of it where you're actually doing paperwork and liaising with insurance companies, and there's many different avenues to go from there. There's a lot of growth. There's a lot of, even with EVs as well, there's so much technology coming into the industry. And myself, I do a lot of the HR on site and the OH&S. There's so many different aspects for our industry. It's not so simple as just having a car coming in damaged and repairing it. There's so many steps, so many different companies that surround you. And one thing that I found coming into the industry with a legal background, although it was criminal, I try to mitigate our risk and try to have an analytical perspective on it and try and use those skills in a different way. And I must say, coming into this industry, there's a lot of support. So the MTAA, having my husband as well, it's a lot of backing behind you. If you've got questions, MTAA is always on your side, always ready to go. For example, with unfair contract terms, we had a conference last night. I'm totally up to date with that now because I've got their backing, I've got their information and support. So yeah, it's interesting to come into a different field. I shock a lot of people when I say that I've come from a criminal background, but there's never a dull moment in what I do today, and I really enjoy it. So yeah, it's been a good change.
You mentioned training, Sarah, and I want to go to you now, Alison. You had to really change your thought process towards training, staff retention, different elements of your business that clearly has worked really, really well when it comes to profitability and the success of your business. What were you doing prior, and what have you found is a better way?
Look, I think just over the years to try and attract staff and keep staff, we've had to really change the way that we approach them. 20 years ago, we made a really tough decision to employ visa workers, which sort of in our regional area, there wasn't a great pool of tradespeople. So we sort of went down that track, but then, you know, we've had great success with that. We've had some really awesome people that have become Australian citizens, and they now have their families here, their children here, and they've grown and they're part of our community. But they also can bring to the table a lot of training, which we're now using to employ apprentices. So we've got a really good pool of people that have got some really great skills. And, you know, now we're sort of promoting apprentice, you know, to keep our pool of people and be able to, you know, train the workforce that we need. Regional areas, we're very limited to the people, and, you know, we have a lot of competition with light auto, heavy diesel, mining. So just trying to keep the people and keep them interested in the industry is really important.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got, my partner owns a trucking company on the Sunshine Coast, and drivers, staff retention, he's only had it for a year, and the number that they've gone through absolutely blows my mind. It really is probably, I'd say, one of the biggest challenges, Andrea, that you face. What do you do to compete to get staff, and then once you've got them, to keep them?
Absolutely. And this, a similar story to Alison's, I think, is changing it up and looking at what you need as a holistic approach to the business. So we've been through many changes. So business has been around 53 years. I inherited some of that, but I think we've been down the path of importing staff from overseas, and it was very successful at the time. So we've done that on 4 occasions. We've also, throughout that process, never given up on the opportunity of trying to hire locally apprentices and training our own. And we're currently in a phase of, we've got 5 apprentices at the moment, and all of our tradespersons are people that we've trained along the way. So very excited about that at the moment. It's sort of bringing with it.
Might have a slight connection. We might see if Andrea can come back to us shortly. And I might go to you, Carly, with your thoughts on what is one of the biggest issues that any company in Australia right now faces, and that's staff.
Oh, Andrea, are you back? Oh, we've lost her again. Yes, I think Alison and Andrea are really hitting the mark there. I think I'd just like to add that always the team. So for our business, I couldn't do it without my team. I'm not a sole trader, so having the whole team a part of the business is so important. We support personal and team wellbeing. That's very big on our strategy to do with the business, and this sets the tone for our business, including sustainability and longevity. Diversity, also a very important aspect, creating a good future, breaking down the barriers, being inclusive and non-exclusive, tuning in. They all seem like really easy, simple strategies, but just absolutely critical, creating that culture that people want to be a part of. Practical tools such as learning strategies for communicating with different types of peoples and recognising different styles. And then just when things get manic, where I always keep coming back to the clearing the road and that clear path, and helping others and our team refocus on that joint vision. So keeping it healthy, sustainable, being stable in an unstable market is everything to our people. So being authentic and consistent, I think, are very important aspects to the team.
The word culture gets a good run, doesn't it? And particularly, I hosted sports for 10 years, and the greatest example I saw of this in practice was with the Melbourne Storm, who we all know, yes, they had some salary cap issues, but we'll put that aside. They're a phenomenal organisation. Craig Bellamy, their coach, just brilliant in everything that he does. Senior players who set the standard, the younger ones followed. And Cooper Cronk went from the Melbourne Storm, for those who are maybe from the other states, the Victorian states, etc., Western Australia. He was with the Melbourne Storm, won multiple premierships, then went to the Roosters. And Todd Greenberg, who was the CEO of the NRL a few years ago, talks about how when he first became CEO, he went around to every single NRL club to meet with every single player. And he said only one club at the time, every player came up the front, shook his hand, looked him in the eye, then went and sat down. All the others, he walked into the room, they sat there, he did a speech, he left. One club, and that was the Melbourne Storm. The next year, Cooper Cronk had moved to the Roosters, and there were two clubs where every single player stood up, walked over, shook his hand, and that was what Cooper Cronk had taken from that culture at the Melbourne Storm to his new team. Can you explain to me, who can I go to? Melissa, on what you do to maintain a good culture in your workplace and what the challenges are in doing that?
For us, we have an amazing group of staff who've been with us a very long time. We've probably got about 7 staff that are onto their second lot of long service leave, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
We put through every 18 months 2 new apprentices, 1 in each area, and have maintained that over the past 17 years. So for us, it's joining that diversity of young, mature age to younger staff. So we've also looked to bring on more mature age apprentices. We found really good success in that and found people wanting to do a career change, especially after COVID. For us, we do a lot of staff functions. We have our toolbox meeting nearly every day where they have to, not have to, but we all try and engage as much as we can. But I think it's encouraging to encourage our staff to look beyond what they're doing within the current workshop, take on other roles. We have a lot of apprentices and trades that are volunteer firefighters that look outside and take the learnings that they learn away from work and bring it back in to share with the others, which is fantastic. I think it's just constant learning, helping our staff learn more. The more they learn, the more they bring back to offer to other staff within the organisation. So,
Andrea, if you're back, I'd love to go to you. You won Small Business of the Year. Training, I think, was one of the particular focuses there. What's the secret to doing that really well?
It was the VET training Small Business of the Year for Queensland. Yeah, so essentially breaking it down, and Carly mentioned it earlier with diversity. What does diversity mean for us as a business and for the automotive industry as a whole? So I think the potential to look outside of the normal box, whatever that normal looks like. So for me, diversity came with many years ago. We were introduced to a couple of young fellows who, one of them had Asperger's, one of them had dyslexia, which sounds scary when you consider the fact that part numbers can be, more than 10 to 15 digits long, and how is that going to look? But it's about not being scared of that difference. It's about embracing the difference and bringing that into the whole team environment. And I've got to say, not everybody was on board with it. But eventually, and like I said before, the team that we've got now, particularly great, and they're quite inclusive as well. So both of those young men have gone on to become apprentices, tradespersons now, one in the panel, one in the paint department. We've also been very fortunate to secure a young Indigenous person who came to us because he was friends with one of our other team members. And now his sister is working with us as well. They both signed up as apprentices. So I guess it's about not being scared of what might be different to what you had considered normal, how to embrace that and how to work with that into the future. So,
does anyone have any other examples potentially of where they've taken a risk on hiring someone that was different or was, maybe the less easy option, and it's then paid off, tenfold potentially?
I have an example. We recently took on a 16-year-old young man, apprentice panel beater, and he came to us. It was through another company relation, and he wasn't sort of sure what he wanted to do, so we gave him a trial. We let him walk around the shop, see what he enjoyed most. We did know at the back of our minds that he had ADHD, but it didn't deter me at all. It was just at the back of my mind. And when he came, he preferred to do panel beating. So now he's teamed up with our head beater, and he's only been here for 6 months, and he's already changing quarter paddles on Teslas. And it's whenever I come to the workshop, I love to just go and sticky beak where he is and just watch him. And I can just see him thriving, and he's found his passion. And it's just such a privilege to witness that and to facilitate that as well. So we have high hopes for him. And I knew he wanted to leave school young. He was left school in year 10, but he had to be signed out by his parents and come to us. So we were happy to support that. So there was a little bit of sort of umming and ahhing, should we encourage that, shouldn't we? And but he's been flourishing, so it was the right thing to do.
I dropped out of uni 6 times on my way to my, not that I'm trying to inspire any young people watching to do that, but I was lazy. I wanted to go out with my friends. I had no interest until I found my passion, which was the media. And from that day forward, as a 21-year-old, I was always the hardest worker in the room. Not the most talented, but the hardest worker. So once you find your passion, I think it's beautiful to watch other people do that. Carly, what challenges have you found as a woman in this field? And on the other side, because I found this as well, there were certainly challenges when I first started on the footy show. The backlash was immense. And as I would read through the tropes of hate toward me on Twitter, and I tell you, I don't do that anymore, I've learned, but the focus was all not on anything I'd said, not on my knowledge, but on the fact that I was a woman, what I looked like, the fact that I hadn't played, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So 99% of the criticism was based on my gender as opposed to my performance. But there were also some incredible advantages I got as being a woman in that field as well. So what did you find hard, and what do you think maybe helped in terms of your career trajectory by being a woman, maybe particular skill sets that women possess more than men that enable you to do something better?
Yeah, I think, firstly, being different is a good thing. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It's your part. And so you've got to use that as your strength. Funnily enough, it wasn't difficult for me in this trade until I became the owner of the business. And then the people that I would be dealing with instantly changed. And so, I'd been threatened, the bullying, just the tactics, the unsavory tactics used to try and crush me when I became a business owner. And the same people that you were dealing with prior, and I'd been in the business, it would have been maybe 11 years before I became, the business owner, 11, 12 years. So interestingly, found that very confronting. But whenever there's a problem or a challenge, you can always flip it and make it an opportunity. And so we structured our business a little bit. We created space. So we said no to a lot of that sort of behaviour, obviously, as most people probably would try and do that. And it actually created space for lots of other wonderful things that could happen for our business. And being in control of our business, just being able to support your team, it was inspiring in itself, being able to have control over that. And so I guess there's so many things outside, external from our business that we can't control, whether, if you're not owning a business, at the place that you work, but being able to control certain aspects of your life and what you do, there is, definitely strength in that. So we completely restructured, and now, I just back myself and make sure that others who I deal with back themselves too. And, I'm always asking questions that, what gives me strength and to find a useful life and a path of contribution, and keeping it local too. So not trying to think of taking over the world, but trying to keep focused on what's needed here and how can I support and serve the people I'm with. What can I do to assist and nurture young people to supersede my own levels? And I think a lot of training that's now during COVID, particularly now coming outside of it, a lot of online training has become more possible. So I'm doing a course in the US at the moment, online, a 20-hour course that I wouldn't have been able to do previously. Just encourage people to do the same, just always working on skills and new talent within ourselves to be better and do better. We have a KPI that we like to refer to. That keeps us inspired, and it's not about key performance indicators. It's about keeping people informed, keeping people involved, keeping people interested, and keeping people inspired. And so that's what we do with our team and beyond. So always staying fresh.
I love that KPI. That's brilliant. I've just written those down. Melissa, you mentioned, Carly, that you found your voice a little bit. And for me, it was very difficult in the early days. I was much younger than everyone else. The other people I was dealing with were much more established. The thought of actually calling out something that was inappropriate would make me feel physically ill. I just wouldn't do it. As I got older and more confident and understood that I had the right to feel safe in my workplace, that I started to do it. Melissa, have you had to, in your experience, had to call out behaviour that was inappropriate and specifically because of your gender, or what's been your experience?
Oh, absolutely. The classic one. I always used to wear a dress or a skirt to work, and one day I was sitting at the front counter and this elderly gentleman come in, said he needed to see the boss. And I said, well, lucky for you, here I am. And he said, no, I need one with pants on. And for that particular day, had pants on. So I stood up and I said, look, it's your lucky day, here I am. And he looked past me and he said, look, love, I've got one of you at home. Just go and get me one of the fellas. And I said, right, okay, well, you just wait out by your car and I'll find one of the 15 fellas I have out the back. It's hilarious. I think he was out there 25 minutes. And I said to my husband, there is no way you're helping him in any possible way. I don't care what he needs, what he wants, but just take your time. And he needed 3 little clips, and which I do all the ordering for the clips. I probably would have even given them to him. Yeah. And my husband was gorgeous in back of me and said, look, mate, you're just going to have to go down the road. There's no possible way I can help you here today. But that was just a classic old school mentality. But
has it changed? Is that less frequent now? Do you find our attitudes changing on the whole?
Absolutely, yeah. Like for me, I think a lot of people come into our workplace to see me, not just my husband. My husband's amazing at what he does, but I think people realise now we're definitely on an equal par, and I can help you. I've been doing this a long time, and if I can't help you, I'm more than happy to find somebody that can. I know I'm no expert. I've never pulled a car apart, but I think I could give it a really good go. But I think the mentality has definitely changed. I think for our workplace, we have 4 women that work in the workplace, and we're all quite visible. And, you know, sometimes they'll walk in and there's not a male in sight. And, you know, I think the more mature gentlemen sort of look around and, yeah, is someone here that can help? No, I just love proving them wrong. Sure, no, I know very much all about that. So, yeah, I think it has changed.
That's great, Andrea. I'd love to hear about your experience, because I think, you know, you kind of alluded to it there, Melissa, in that, you know, you might not be able to do this bit, but you know this bit back to front. And that was always my thing as well, in that I knew my strengths, I knew my role. I wasn't an ex-player, I wasn't a league legend, so I was never going to speak from that place or even try to, you know, that just wasn't for me. But the job that I was doing, I knew bloody back to front and could do really well. Andrea, what's your experience of being a woman in this industry?
Yeah, I think we've all got stories we could share like Melissa's, and I take great pleasure in being able to say I'm afraid no one else is going to be able to help you with that one, especially given that introduction, you know, into what you want. But one of the things that I find the most challenging is when there are people who should know better in the industry, people who will put it out there and say that they want to have different and respect that, and yet actually behave in different ways. So that's still something that I find challenging, obviously, with different boards and committees and things like that I try to get involved with. In fact, it actually came up just last weekend. So we had the MTAQ ball was on last weekend, and I was asked a couple of interesting questions. I thought one of them was, why bother nominating for the Queensland Training Awards? What did it bring the business? For me, it's not always about what it brings the business, although that's certainly a consideration. It's also about what it brings for me personally and the advantages that I think it can bring my team. So I hadn't had any knowledge about that type of training or the awards, even though it had been put out into the media. I hadn't really paid that much attention, but it was more specifically asked of me to get involved by the DSBT people I'd become involved with through a program I was running at work. It opened up so many doors, things that I hadn't really considered. So when you talk about, lots of people say, I haven't got time for that. And I'm not sure that I do either, except, and this probably will come up in the leadership question, and if we can touch on that, the difference between being a leader to me is about putting yourself out there and creating new challenges for yourself as well. So yeah, look, it's all a little bit scary, even doing something like this. 4 years ago, 5 years ago, would never have considered it, where now I'm sort of going, hey, yeah, I'm happy to share my story. The criteria for me is about when I agree to do something similar to this panel, the time factor is not really the issue. It's more about, am I able to help other people? Am I able to help within my business? Extended to my business, can I help my family out and my team? Can I raise the profile of my business in order to do that? And what does it look like for the automotive community or my local community? Like, am I assisting other people in that? How I go about doing those things? The Queensland Training Awards definitely did that. It lifted the profile of my business. It helped me understand better, like, how I can put my apprentices to the forefront next year, because I didn't realise there were so many categories. And the other thing that it did, it lifted the profile of the business to the point where so many other people were sharing that information, and I found that was like a really interesting way of doing it. But the best thing it did was made me stop and reflect on what we have achieved over the past 50 odd years as not me, obviously, I'm barely 50 myself, but I don't want to say that, but what the business has been able to achieve in that period of time. How many apprentices have we trained? What did that scope look like, 25 years ago, or even 10 years ago when we were starting? And apprentices, like most of the people that we've got there now, like Melissa said, people heading into their second round of long service leave, and I've lived their life. I've been there the whole time. So for me now, it's a different kind of journey where I'm taking on, going, okay, so we've seen them get married, we've seen them have children, we've been there their whole life. It's quite an amazing aspect to sit and reflect on that. And that's one of the things that I hadn't expected to get out of nominating for the training awards. It was an interesting take on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that, the mentality behind it. It's such an insight. Alison, what about you? You've been in this industry for 30 years. In which ways have you seen it grow and evolve in terms of not just the acceptance of women, but potentially the championing of them?
Yeah, look, definitely, in the beginning, 30 years ago, it was a very hard industry to be in. People, didn't believe that you could help them, and, perhaps weren't willing to accept your word. You have to always do the argy-bargy, especially when you're talking insurance companies, assessors, and, all the paperwork stream that has to happen. It can be a real struggle to make them listen and believe that, you do know what you're talking about, and, you're able to achieve what they're asking you to do. We've sort of tried to encourage people to just listen and believe that women can lead in this industry. We currently have, 2 really great young women working in the office, and, they're just a force to be reckoned with. If you need something done, they'll make sure it happens. They go out of their way to ensure that the clients and things are done properly. Everybody's able to, make things work at the end of the day, and they can return something back to a client. And they're pretty proud of what they do. And I'm pretty proud of the fact that, they're in their mid to late 20s, and they're just, able to achieve and get the respect of the people that come through the door.
Sarah, I'd love your take, because I'd imagine that criminal law, in fact, I don't actually know. I've got a sister who's in contract law, but whether it's female skewed or male dominated, but what the differences were that you found from that industry to your current one?
I found that they're both male dominated. There's no doubt about that. But I also found, because I'd been exposed to that industry being male dominated and having 2 brothers, and I've just always been around men. So I find myself comfortable working around them. But I've also developed a thick skin, and sometimes too thick. So just trying to manage the expectations. And also I found that coming into this industry, like I mentioned before, there's a lot of support behind you. So, for example, Kathy, who's organised today, she's also has a legal background. And if I had any issues or questions, I could, chat with her, and she could be my support person. In law, sometimes it's a little bit different to that. It's very competitive. So I found in the automotive industry, I'm not sure other people's experience, but my experience is there's quite a lot of support behind you, but you still need to have that thick skin. Another thing that we've done where I work at MPSR is we've sponsored the Roosters for about 10 years now. So we sponsored Kronk for 2 years when he came from the Storms. Yeah, and we also have been sponsoring Tupi for 10 years. So we have been exposed to the culture of the footy. And I often compare it to our business where it's like a team effort, and also having that team environment. I mean, we spend more time at work than we do at home. So learning to, as a female, lead a male-dominated group, the Roosters and the way that they structure their leadership, it's a good reflection that I can use. So they do a lot of well-being support and also understanding that those players and our staff alike have their own baggage that comes with it, their own issues at home. And you always, as a leader and as a female, try and have a sympathetic ear. So, I mean, that's one of the benefits of being a female is you have that sympathetic ear, and you're able to sort of manage personal interest with business as well. So that juggling act. Also, just as a leader in the female, in this industry as a female, I try and challenge myself and try and challenge the other ladies that work with us. We've got 8 other ladies that work in the office with us, and also a female painter. Try and challenge them, put them into a situation that they're supported, but they're doing something out of their comfort zone. For example, me being here today talking about myself, I would rather go and hide and talk about MPSR or talk about my husband who's been in the trade for 20 years and he's fantastic. But I would rather go and hide. But here I am trying to put myself out there and trying to do something different. So I also find by talking about myself here and leading in that way, I'm setting an example. And I'm setting an example for the other girls in the business or in the industry. So you've got to have your thick skin, you've got to have a sympathetic ear, try and challenge yourself and lead by example. But, you know, we are at work more than we are at home, so you've got to really enjoy that as well. Yeah.
Yeah, really well said, Carly. It leads into leadership, which, you know, is a role that you're all in. I can't believe so many of you have expressed that you wouldn't be comfortable doing this because you're all speaking so beautifully. It's no one has come across nervous at all, so you're doing a wonderful job. Carly, leadership, what does it mean to you and how do you show it? Is it similar to Sarah in that by example is one of the ways that you lead?
Yeah, Sarah really hit it well. I think that's really like we teach our young people, it's leading by example. I think also setting healthy boundaries too, knowing and setting healthy boundaries is really important for mental health. Saying no to something, and it's not, you know, setting those boundaries is necessarily saying no to things, but it is okay to say no as well, and supporting your people through that. But the big thing I think that Sarah really tapped on as well was the upskilling and training and encouraging your people, because it's all about people. You know, our businesses wouldn't be around without our people and personalities, and encouraging your people to train and learn something new, or, you know, improve a skill, or if they've got an area that they want to work in. It doesn't always have to be technical. We're always doing a lot of technical training, but there is so many courses out there. A lot of them can be micro online tutorials that we all have access to. A lot of them are free. Some of them aren't very expensive at all, and just tapping into the enthusiasm of other people and learning from their experiences and or their backgrounds, and so encouraging that confidence with your people, because like Sarah said, you're at work more than you're at home, so making sure that you love it and challenging yourselves constantly. There's not getting sort of stale. I think staying relevant is really important in anything that we do, whether it's you know, your working day or after hours. I also teach yoga in my spare time, so that also complements the stresses of running a business as well, and dealing with you know, massive corporations who sometimes don't align with what your vision and aspirations are. So I guess just being the change you want to see can be really contagious if you let it, and just bringing people along, not you know, not dictating and telling people what to do, but really encouraging, and bringing them along for the ride. I think it's yeah, community is everything, I think, for all of us. It's the glue that keeps us all together. So
Melissa, you're very well qualified, and Carly, that was brilliant. Thank you. I love that. Be the change you want to be. Melissa, you've done so many different courses in rural leadership. You've won so many awards. You've been on boards, Chamber of Business, etc. What's the key, have you found, to leading effectively?
For me, it's definitely been the personal development for myself. Probably 12 years ago, when I was offered the opportunity to do the Australian Rural Leadership Program, it was so out of my comfort zone. It took me away from my small children. It took me away from Esperance and work over a 2-year period for about, 20 plus weeks. So back and forward. But meeting other people within other industries, other just diversity within life, gave me that confidence to take on more roles within my own business, but within my community. I'm super passionate about our beautiful little town. If you've never been to Esperance, it has the world's best beaches, just saying.
Oh, aren't they good? I've seen pictures and they look at the water, looks incredible.
Yeah, we are super lucky where we live. We live in God's paradise. But for me, taking that personal time to develop my own confidence, I think that's the word that I love to use. I've always been a confident child and a confident adult, but I always used to sit back and not ask that question because I think someone else would ask that better or sound more eloquent, and I just was never that person. And by doing that self course for myself, and then I always had that niggling thing. I never went to uni, and God, am I good enough to sit in this room with all these amazing other people that have done degrees? So I thought, no, well, I couldn't fit a uni degree in, but I'll go back and do a dual diploma of business and management through our local TAFE, which was amazing. We've now put 2 other staff members through that course. I'm now also involved with a future leaders course within our small community. We started it 10 years ago, kind of fizzled out, and we've restarted that back up, and we're super lucky we have 2 of our current staff, rolling out through that program. And it's probably finding that what next for your staff. For me, I feel really satisfied that my my journey that I found leadership, confidence, public speaking and media training and things. But now it's like, how do I find that next generation of me? Like, I want to retire. My husband's a little older than me.
Join the club, girlfriend. Join the club.
when he's out, I'm definitely out. But I think we've already got the staff with us, or we need to find that next staff person. And how can we, they're not just a panel beater, they're not just a spray painter, they are an automotive refinish technician. Andrea taught me this, thank you, Andrea. They're not just a detailer, that their skills that they bring to our business is amazing. Their expertise over 4 years of their apprenticeship. I've got a gentleman with us that's been there 45 years. He did his apprenticeship. He's just turning 65 and does not want to retire. So you just go, can we find that next step for our apprentices? Can we find that next step for our office staff? What can we help them achieve within their own growth to then take that, foreman's role, take that office manager's role, and then one day hopefully buy us out or manage the business for us so we can, come and visit everyone around Australia. So for me, I think it's just, personal growth, find it yourself to be able to then encourage the youth or the other people around you. And as Carly and Andrea said, being vigilant within your own community is amazing. Like, giving back, but then you receive it back doublefold, I feel.
Yeah, beautifully said. And I think the points you make about finding not just what they can do now, but seeing potential in someone is such a big part of retention with staff as well. If they believe there's a vision that you have for them, they're much more likely to stay and to invest in your business. Andrea, I want to come to you on this. Leadership is obviously a big thing for you in your own business, but advocacy and leadership on behalf of everyone else is something that you're very passionate about as well. So when it doesn't just directly benefit you, you still want to advocate and help.
That's correct. I just want to dial back a notch because I'm going to challenge Melissa on the best beaches in Australia. Pretty awesome. Okay, so we might have to do a little test where I'll fly over and check out yours, and hopefully you can check out.
I think the Motor Trades Association of Australia has said they'll fund a trip for all of us just to check. Thank you, Kathy.
I think I heard something about that. The VACC VACC will throw in there as well. But aside from that, look, I agree with what everybody's coming up with. The biggest thing for me, and one of the things that I kind of step it up with, is if we take a look outside of our industry, and a few of the ladies have spoken about it this morning, like what does it look like? Melissa's had the experience to go out there in the greater community. And I think what the automotive industry tends to do is become a little bit introverted in the respect that we think we're the only ones facing a problem similar to what we've got. It's just not the case. So we've got to start looking at what other industries do better in engagement processes and things like that. How do we step it up and build into those sorts of things? What I like is when I get out there and I get into I call it the real world as opposed to the automotive world, and you start to hear about a lot more positive aspects within the automotive. It's changing the mindset and the way that we believe it. And like Melissa said, I absolutely hate the term panel beater. I find it has all the wrong connotations. So automotive panel technician, automotive spray refinisher, paint refinisher. The way that we communicate about our industry is really important to me, and I certainly convey that when I take that.
Could I ask you just on that, as someone from outside, what it is about that term that you don't like? I'm just fascinated by that.
I feel like anything to do with beating has the wrong connotation, with especially around domestic violence and things like that. And we talk about being more inclusive for women in this industry, and we still use I mean, I can't see it changing anytime soon, but the more people that get behind the movement, the better it'll be. It sends the wrong message to people. We want to encourage, we want to make it look like it's a grown-up industry. At the moment, I think we've got a long way to go in that. So how we portray ourselves as an industry is really important. We want to have parents out there, and teachers for that matter, getting on board and helping to push this as the grown-up industry that it is. The amount of work that we have to do, panel technicians probably a little more than paint technicians, sorry, all the painters out there, only in the respect that we've got to know a little bit more about a whole lot of things with the vehicles and as they come out. And I've said that 1,000 times over. The amount of knowledge that we're expected to have is phenomenal. If we look at all the makes and models and all the things that are coming out every year. And we do that each and every year. It's not like we learn it this year and we're done. There's a learning challenge that we all have to face like forever, essentially, from the office all the way through, and how that looks essentially. So I think changing the mindset, changing the positive aspects, or focusing on the positive aspects of the automotive industry is certainly going to contribute a long way towards that. So
it's really interesting. I'm very passionate about domestic violence and stopping that, and I did this panel recently, and I wrote an article for the Daily Telegraph about ways that we need to change the way that we view it, and I sent it to one of the societies who advocate and who help women who have been abused. And I'd written about the men and women of something, I think our defence force or the police force or something, and she wrote back and said a tiny thing such as right women and men rather than men first. And I thought, that seems ridiculous. How is that going to help? But when she explained it to me, such a simple thing as just putting women before men rather than just the dominant male. And it's a similar thing with panel beating. You're exactly right. It's a tiny little thing, but it just starts to change attitudes and mentalities. So I love that. Alison, I'd like to know any failings you've had in leadership and the lesson that you learned, if any. I mean, you may be perfect, and God bless if you are, but anytime you've got it wrong potentially and learned a great lesson.
Yeah, look, there has been, I'm far from perfect, I can tell you, over the years. There's been many, many mistakes made, but I guess learning from those mistakes is pretty important. Look, there has been times where I've tried to nurture staff and push them through the trade in hope that, we would retain that person, almost to the point of begging that, please, we've gone this far, you're so close to being at the, the best, maybe not the best in the trade, but becoming a tradesperson and moving through. So, that person then, took on board what I said and agreed to stay, just to find a few months later that it really, really wasn't what that person desired in their life. And I sort of thought about that for a very long time and still reflect on it quite often. When you're talking to people and encouraging them to be the best they can, make sure that it's not a decision you're making for the better of you, you need to actually really consider that it is something that they want to do, even though you think they might be going to be great at that job. Maybe it's not the time for them. You know, maybe you really need to think about the whole scenario and not just think about what's best for your, you know, your business. Sometimes perhaps when you're encouraging those people, it's sometimes a very bitter pill to swallow. But
Yeah.
you know, that also is something that you need to do in leadership. You have to really consider all facets, not just, you know, what's better for yourselves or the business or the industry. There is a wholesome, and most of these women today have you know, really nailed it in saying how that, you know, they lead people and the wholesome way that they do that.
Yeah, no, it's been incredible. I've learnt so much
Yeah.
already. I'd like to finish. We've got about 8 minutes left with each of you, and I'll start with you, Sarah. Why you would encourage anyone watching at the moment, and I think we've got a fair few young people, particularly young women, who are considering a career, they're not quite sure, they're a little bit nervous maybe. What you'd say to them, if you would, and I'm sure you would all encourage, because you've all seemed to have done really well and love what you do, but what you would say to anyone considering the kind of career that you've had in this field. And Sarah, I'll start with you.
Yeah, I think, as I mentioned earlier, there's really never a dull moment. There's always something happening. Every day I'm learning something new. Yeah, I've had this legal background, I've done criminal law and the intensities of that, but still every day I'm learning something new. So, and there's something exciting. And there's also a lot of social events that are connected with the industry as well. For example, last night we had the MTAA, a get-together dinner, and it was nice to network. So there's so many different aspects of our industry, and a lot of people, especially young people, they almost don't even know exist. I had a careers advisor. I invited her to come to the workshop, and she just couldn't believe her eyes how technical, how advanced, how clean our workshop was. So if a young person that's listening now and wants to get into the industry, go to your local smash repairer. Go and have a look what the shops are like, how technical they are, how much training's involved, and I'm sure you'll be so surprised. And it's actually funny sometimes seeing people coming to the workshop for the first time, even customers, and understanding exactly what we do and how technical it is, and seeing their faces, the shock on their face. So if you're thinking of getting into the industry, why not take a walk down the road to your local repairer and have a look for yourself how much is involved. Sometimes we actually have a nickname for one of our head repairers. We call him the doctor of cars. Sometimes we go and have a sticky beak where he is in the corner repairing a Tesla, and he's got all his tools laid out perfectly. It's like he's in a surgery room. And I like to go and have a look at them and how they do it and how much is actually involved. So I think our industry sometimes it's a little bit, it's hidden behind maybe electricals or plumbing. And, you know, we're here, we've got this big industry that no one really sort of knows about. So it's always nice to go into a shop and see how much is involved. So anyone here listening, wanting to get into the industry, go and check it out. See it for your own eyes how much is involved, including EVs, which is, you know, the next generation.
That's all coming, isn't it? Melissa, your thoughts?
For me, is just come and give it a go. I think it's understanding what's behind that roller door at a panel shop, or, you know, for me, some of the best painters are people that are really proud of themselves with their art and things like that. You know, a clean and tidy person can make one of the best painters that I've ever come across. So giving it a go. Don't be disheartened. Probably behind many doors there are a lot of women hiding there that you never even knew were in the industry. So yeah, come approach. I love taking on people for work experience. It's one of the best joys that I have. So I think be confident that you can do it. Definitely.
Carly.
I guess there's just so much global uncertainty at the moment, and it's reassuring that this trade isn't going anywhere. It's going to be needed for a long time to come, similar to other trades where you can't replace those trades people with automatic systems. And so the tech that's going on in our industry is still going to need a human behind it and doing the actual work. For our business, it's a craft, and my team are very passionate about what they do. It's not a boring job. And so for anyone who's looking to get into either the workshop or the business side of it, there's so much involved that you can have lots of different hats on. And it's just, there's never a boring day. So
yeah, that's a theme.
Yeah,
like
for sure.
no boringness. Yeah, love that. Andrea.
Well, I would say for any of the young people that are online at the moment, there's no, you don't have any fees involved. So at the moment back at home, we've got the construction industry having a great push on you guys finish, by the time you finish your trade, you haven't got that HECS, you can basically walk out and do whatever you want from that point. So I think that's huge. I think making uni not necessary is kind of cool, and I want to get in that movement. I think the automotive industry needs to get in on that. So it is all the things that everyone else has said, but that's another big push that we've got. So yeah.
Alison.
Yeah, look, I just think that seeing the change in the industry over the last 30 years, I can just not imagine what the future holds, really. There's so many exciting things and changes that have happened in just maybe the last 10 years. Where is it going to end, you know? And for anybody that's interested in the beginning in this industry, I think that they've just got so much to learn. And, you know, there's some really great people out there with lots and lots of things to offer as far as learning goes. So who knows where the technology is going to end in this industry, for sure.
No, I love that. And yeah, ladies, it's been really, really eye-opening for me. You've got some incredible things to share. And I'm sure that none of you, particularly given skills shortages and issues with staff, would mind if anyone directly hit you up on LinkedIn or anything like that as well. Google, guys, go onto websites, get in contact with these ladies directly if you want to go, if you want to start an apprenticeship, if you want a job. To all of you, thank you so much for sharing parts of yourself with us, maybe not all the highlights as well, some of the lowlights, which I think, you know, you learn from so much more these days, and for being so open about your own journeys. It's been incredibly inspiring, and as someone who's also been in a male-dominated field for my entire career, I know how hard it can be to just front up every single day and feel like you're fighting the same battle against the same people. But I tell you what, the highs and the rewards far outweigh any negative that I've ever experienced. And I think you've really painted an incredible picture of that today. So thank you so much for being so open and for sharing your stories with everyone watching. And guys, get involved. I mean, look, I'm tempted. When they dump us with our breakfast radio show, which they do, they sack everyone all the time. I'm coming for you. I'm coming to Esperance. I have to get a spray tan, but then I'm coming straight after that. Ladies, thank you so much. Everyone, thank you so much for watching, and look forward to seeing you guys next time. Take care. Bye. Thank you.